Hello and welcome to the Budding Genius Web and Game Development course outline. My name is Aiden and I'm the one who teaches this course. Let's take a look at what students will be learning throughout this course. So, what platform will students be using to code? Students will use Visual Studio Code and Codepen as assistive tools to help them learn. Both of these applications are extremely helpful for beginners and advanced students who are trying to be efficient and streamlined when programming. Codepen will primarily be used for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Visual Studio Code will be used for C# programming with Unity. Visual Studio Code is a desktop application that allows you to edit almost any programming language in a safe and secure environment. Codepen is a website which allows you to edit code and see the effects of your code in real time. Now, let's take a look at what the difference is between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the three main languages for web development. Students taking this course will receive tutorials in all three languages and learn about how they synergize together when building a website. So, what's the difference between them? HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, creates the structure of websites. It controls the layout of the content on the website and provides structure for the web page design. It is a fundamental building block of any web page. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It stylizes the websites and applies style to the web page elements, such as text. It targets various screen sizes to make web pages responsive and primarily handles the look and feel of a web page. It can also be used to create very cool looking animations. Finally, we have JavaScript. JavaScript increases interactivity on websites. It handles complex functions and features and is programmatic code which enhances functionality. So, what are the concepts that students will learn in this course? Students will learn how to get user input through a website and submit it to the URL. They will also learn how to properly stylize websites and make them look good. Also, they will learn basic HTML concepts such as labels, buttons, and forms. Furthermore, students will learn how to animate their websites using CSS and JavaScript. Finally, they will learn how to embed videos and audio within their websites to make them much more interesting and engaging. Game development with Unity. In addition to learning web development, students will also learn object-oriented programming through the C# language with the Unity engine. What are the concepts that students will learn while taking this course? Students will learn basic player movement and how to use colliders effectively. They will also learn how to navigate the Unity engine, learning fundamental skills that will stay with them forever when programming. Students will also learn about time-based operations and simulating physics, as well as learning how to make good-looking user interfaces for their games. I will also teach students how to make basic AI for non-player characters as well. In this image, we can see all the things that Unity lets us do. It's an all-in-one editor with many support tools. It has 2D and 3D support, has AI pathfinding tools, which is very useful and which I will be talking about. It has rapid iteration and has a great developer community for anyone who has questions. Now, let's take a look at Codepen and see how it works. So, here we have Codepen. As you can see, Codepen is a website, which makes it a lot easier to access. It also means that you don't have to install any application on your computer. So, let's break it down. So, here we have the HTML section. This is where you write all your HTML code for your website. As you write it, it will appear in real time, such as if I type this letter. As you can see, it updated it almost instantly. This is very effective when trying to make websites. And now here we have our CSS window. As we discussed prior, CSS handles the styling of a website. Is what makes this text centered, and it also allows us to put this image here. It also changes the color of the text instead of just basic black and white. It also lets us change the font, as we can see here. CSS is divided into classes. And what classes are is you write class here, and if you do the same class name here, this class will apply only to this text, which allows for compartmentalized coding, and it's very effective. And finally, we have JavaScript. JavaScript is a very good language for animations on your website. As all this code here lets us do a very cool animation, which I will demonstrate now. As you can see, with that animation made our website look much better. The code, however, is quite complex, but don't worry, I will walk students through how to do each and every code line. I'll also explain to students why this works, as there is some mathematics involved. Now, let's take a look at the Unity editor and Visual Studio code. So, here we have the Unity editor. It is a very streamlined and efficient editor if you know how to use it. Here we have our scene, which is where we can implement and add game objects that we want to be in our game. Here we have our game, what our game looks like when we play it. As you can see, the thing I have highlighted is called platform. And what this platform does is, well, it's a platform that lets our player stand on. And as you can see, it's a cube that we have resized and added a texture to make it look a little bit better. And that is a fundamental thing with Unity. It's just adding game objects and retexturizing them. Also, here we have our player. Our player is the primary thing that we control when playing our game. As you can see, we have our script for it, which is the code that tells our player what to do. Without this, our player would just be a random bean just sitting in the middle of nowhere. But with this, we can add user interface, we can interface with it and allow it to do what we want. Also, we simulate physics with the character controller component, which I will teach students about. This is a very important part of Unity, as if there's no physics, your game will not be that great. Now, let's take a look at the code that our player uses. So, here we have the code for our player. At the top, this is our class, which is our player. And here we have all our variables. Variables are extremely important when programming with Unity. Variables can be anything from game objects to time to even our number of player lives. But the particular one we will be looking at is our speed. Now our speed is how fast our player will go when we are controlling it. Now let's see how to implement this. So here we have our method for player movement. This method is called everyFrame, as you can see here. Now, what does all this code mean? Well, it's very simple. Basically, all this code does is allow it to detect when we are pressing keys, and it'll move our player depending on which keys we are pressing. As you can see, direction is our horizontal input, which means our player can only move on a horizontal line. And it's also multiplied by our speed, which we can manually set and make our player go slower or faster. So let's see how this works in the Unity engine. Now, I'm going to play our game, which is done through this button right here. Now, notice how the second the game started, this text appeared. This is known as UI, and I will get into that a bit later. But here, we see how we can move our player along a horizontal axis, just like our code wants it to do. And the one thing you have to remember about Unity coding is that it's very specific. It'll do exactly what you want it to do. So as you can see, we are moving at a certain speed. And as you can see over here, we have our player speed, which is 8 units a second. We can make this faster or slower depending on what we prefer. Now, let's exit our play scene and look at some of the other aspects on this scene. As you can see, we also have an NPC character. This is an AI-controlled character that we have to code. Let's take a look at his code. As you can see, he has a very prominent code file, as he's a pretty important character within our game. As you can see, his primary code is through this while loop, which means all of this will keep looping when he is activated. This is very important, as he will keep doing this until the game is stopped or he is destroyed. We will be learning more about this in the course. And now, the final thing that I will talk about is colliders. Colliders are extremely important in a game, as it lets you know when something collides with something, we can make something happen. As see this component here, it is called capsule collider, and what it does, it circles around our game object as is a capsule, and it'll detect when something hits it. And we can program this to make it so that if a particular thing hits it, something will happen. Let's take a look at that. So here, in this code, we can see that if the player hits this game object, something will happen. And in this case, it's fall damage, which means the player will take damage. And it'll also make some text appear as well through methods. This is done through interscript communication, which is a very important part of Unity, which I will be explaining in the course. I hope this was informative for you, and I hope you will take this course. Thanks for watching. I'm Aiden Yusuf.